Rotten Tomatoes, one of the open websites where thousands of critics and moviegoers come and review their favorite or least favorite movies. Most of the time, the consensus is pretty unanimous. The movie is either amazing, average, or just downright disastrous. And then you come across movies like these. The 2024 It Ends With Us, the 2024 Triptych, Kinds of Kindness, and the 2017 The Last Jedi. It sure makes you wonder who's right and who's wrong. And in the end, is this movie good or bad?
In a much more real sense, I had no idea what to do.
In this episode, we will review some of these controversial opinions and see if we agree or disagree with any of them in this new series, Critics versus Audience.
Beans? Bings.
And I'm sure we'll agree with everything, right, Darren? No, there'll be no disagreement.
Right. Do you want to go through like how the format of how we are going to do this new
So
series?
first, we're just going to show the Rotten Tomato score about both from the critics and the reviews, and then we're going to grab some of the reviews from both sides, put them up on screen for you guys to see, and we'll talk and discuss from there. And then once we get through the discussion, maybe we'll discuss more, or maybe we'll jump into our results or answers or our right takes, however you want to take it.
Fair enough. So the first movie that we will jump in is, surprisingly, It Ends With Us.
It ends with us. The beginning is the end.
It already tells you like the future of this episode. So It Ends With Us, the 2024 drama, directed and starred by Justin Baldoni, from a screenplay that was adapted on a novel in 2016 by Colin Hoover. There's a quite small budget, $25 million.
Yeah, not too big.
But the box office is $350 million
Which
worldwide.
is crazy. I'm surprised it did so well.
Yeah, so minimum $30 million in profits. Of course, there are a lot of things surrounding this movie that, rather than just the critics and the audience, but I think we can talk about that aspect a bit later. The first thing that I want to discuss is the overall scores on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yep.
So 56% from the critics on 185 reviews, and 90% audience score from 5,000 reviews.
All right, 5,000 we reckon for probably like a smaller, 300 million. I thought it might have had some more reviews, but that's all right.
Now let's go to the first 3 reviews of the movie.
So this is audience.
This is the audience comment. Justin Baldoni. Well, I think they misspelled the name there.
Did they? No, that's all right. We don't judge people for spelling errors.
Yeah. So Justin Baldoni was amazing in this.
That's my take on that review. That's a very audience, response, right? They're just like, I like the guy. I thought he was attractive. Probably
He is very
He's
attractive.
very attractive. I won't deny. But it like I wouldn't completely disagree with it, but it's just like,
And he plays a very it's more like a bit imaginary in a way as well. He's very attractive. He's also a neurosurgeon. He's rich. He's not too old as well. That's the point, I think.
In what way? What do you mean that he's not too old?
Because in this kind of story, in order for you to become a neurosurgeon, you have to go through like schools. Or
How many years of schooling?
Or probably 10 or something
10?
years.
So at the younger age, you're saying he's like mid-30s probably?
Yeah.
I think that's about right. Looks about that.
And he's a bit of a wonderkin as well, right? So when you reach to that kind of level of success at that age, it's not a usual thing.
Yeah. Because it seemed like, from the way that they described some of the surgeries and stuff, it seems like he was doing some high-level stuff, right?
100%.
So, I think, I was going to say, I should just maybe think of an anime series called Monster. I don't know if you've ever watched it, but similar kind of thing where he's a young guy and he's already like near the head of the department, or does become the head of the department, but at like a young age. Yeah. But I get in that way. But that's kind of like, that's how it's meant to shown off at the start. Like he's this kind of attractive dude, very successful, right?
Yep.
And it does show a little bit of what they get into later, but he's kind of like meant to be this perfect image, or comes across as this perfect image, right?
Correct. And Justin took on a few different roles for the movie as well. So he was one of the producers, he's a director, and he also stars in the movie as well.
That was a lot of effort, really.
Lots of responsibilities, and apparently he is a big advocate for the issue, especially in the movie, domestic abuse and suicidal attempts, things like that.
It's fair enough. Like it's a good cause to make like a film to touch on those issues, especially when you're like, the antagonist in this film, essentially doing some of these things. So it's like props to him for like doing that at the very least. Like that'd be tough.
Yeah. The next review that we have.
So surprised we got a lot more out of that for like 4 words.
Yeah. I absolutely loved it. Cried the whole last 30 minutes to an hour. Very triggering though. 100% wouldn't recommend to people with what do you mention it?
SA, it's sexual assault.
Sexual assault, sorry, abuse, or talk of mental health and suicide triggers. I love the movie though. It was an incredible movie in my opinion. Incredible plot too. Okay.
Well, you'd hope it had a good plot if the movie was incredible. It's hard because that's very, very like on the point, right?
Yeah.
I loved it. I didn't love it.
Yeah, that completely
But
fine. Yeah.
I can understand the point of saying in the last 30 minutes because that's when it all happens, really.
Yeah.
If I had a complaint about this movie, it'd be like it's too long to kind of get into it.
Yeah.
Which is hard to say when it's getting into some of its more serious issues. But that's when that happens. Literally like the last 30 minutes of the films when it all comes together really, which I was like, oh. It's always hard being like, oh, can you get to like the bones of it when you know you're dealing with such big topics and they were trying to do like feel like too much of a setup.
Yeah. I agree with you. Yes.
But it was hard for me because it is sad, but there's some points where I was like, what? Like I can get where they're coming from, but I'd probably like if we're looking at the review, there's like two, he's like, the review is I loved it and I cried. And they thought it was incredible.
Yeah.
And the plot was good.
Yeah.
Was the plot good?
Yeah.
Was it an incredible movie? And it does talk about serious.
Yeah.
Like, it's a weird review. I think it was just like, they loved it, but it does deal with serious issues.
And my take on this is I agree that the movie took a long time to set up the stories. I think it's it might be a bit more suitable to become a bit of a short movie, like a short film.
I was even thinking more of like a TV series, it felt like. If it was like a mini series with like 4 or 5 episodes or something.
Yeah.
But because that's what it felt like. I'm like, it feels like a TV series to me or something more than a movie.
Yeah.
Just because it was trying to, I understand what it was trying to do.
Yeah.
Like maybe we'll get into the plot, maybe a bit more details later. But yeah, I can understand why there was probably like trying to develop all the relationships. So it builds up to the point when it all kind of unravels. It's a bit more meaningful, but I didn't feel that personally.
Yeah. I think that sometimes less is more. You know, like when you show something to the audience, you don't need to show them too much. Like certain points of the setup part, I thought that it was necessary. Like we can make the connections in our head, so we don't need to be shown that. All right, and then it didn't feel like the movie was over 2 hours long. How they chose to originally portray what she goes through and how she's able to see it clearly later was so powerful. The whole story is touching, and this movie showed the complexities of a serious issue. Everyone was perfection, and the story flows well.
I will say this is the best review from the audience on so far. It actually delves into what they actually thought about the film. I disagree with the first point. We've already said that we felt a bit long.
Yeah.
But I do like the point when she goes into because usually from an abusive, from the other side, you don't usually see it until it's too late. And I felt like what it did in this movie well is like when it finally unravels for her, she's like, oh, she like realizes all the moments. Oh shit, it should have made sense for me, right?
Yeah.
But just maybe didn't pick up on it because you're too in it. You're too in love. You're too taken in, and all those little things that we thought were mistakes maybe come back and maybe it was deliberate.
Yeah.
So I will agree with that. Like I do think the way it touches on that is very good.
Yeah, and one of the reasons that the people stay in a abusive relationship is also to sacrifice for the children. Apparently,
That's some of it. That's what it tries to touch on in this film.
Like in her case, like her mom decided to stay with her father is because she thought that she didn't want to have a broken family. I think, I must say that I didn't realize that this movie was 2 hours long because I was watching it on double speed just to get through it.
Come on, Darren.
But I agree. I think that when it gets to the meat of it, it portrayed the main issues very, very well. Okay, so those are the audience score. What about the critics?
What did the critics think?
All right,
just like us, the critics.
Yeah. So the first one is obviously not a good review. So Lively is tasked with carrying the full weight of the story in It Ends With Us. And she's up to the challenge, but this is an uneven and turtle-paced romantic drama that feels like a missed opportunity. This is from Richard Roper of the Chicago Sun-Times.
So it says original score 2.5 out of 4.
Yeah, I don't know where the score is from actually.
So it doesn't run off the same as like the other audience score where they're out of 5.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because that seems on the higher end, doesn't it?
Yeah.
2.5 out of 4 seems more positive than negative.
True.
But I would kind of agree. But I don't think Lively's like fine. I don't. It isn't like a you know, her performance isn't like to a point it's like, wow, she really like pulled it off. I thought it was fine.
Yeah.
Because I feel for half of the story, it feels like a romantic comedy. Not even comedy, but a romantic movie.
Yeah, like romance, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not a big romance guy. And even in this, I felt like, ugh.
Yeah.
There was a lot of points where I was like rolling my eyes. I'm like, okay, you're two sexy people. I get it. Leave me alone.
I agree with this kind of comment as well. Like, I haven't seen Lively in other movies, so I really don't know.
The only one that comes to mind is when I watched bloody Green
Lantern.
Lantern. Green Lantern again.
Yeah.
Well, Deadpool doesn't count really. She's like a cameo and walks down the street.
Yeah.
But yeah. And even that, I don't know.
Yeah.
I've already talked about that film and how we feel about it. So.
Yeah.
But I would agree with the turtle pace stuff of that. Like he says, the turtle pace like that. That's what I mean. There was maybe like an hour and a half of like the romance stuff, maybe a bit less, but it felt like a lot more than it needed. But I see why they were doing it.
Yeah. Do you think that Blake Lively is a strong leading actress?
Like that's like you said, I'm the same boat that I haven't seen her in enough to like make on this alone, like. Especially when it's longer as well. I thought she was like fine, but nothing like, especially for this, she needs like a very strong performance.
Yeah.
There were like times where I thought she was good, but other times I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially when there's a lot of romance stuff.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I know it's hard to judge, especially when I'm not like very big into romance stuff. So I can't really judge it on that, but I didn't really enjoy that stuff in this film. So, you know.
And I guess if we compare her performance with the one in Green Lantern, it's not very different. Like just the way she acts.
In Green Lantern, what she got like 5 minutes of screen time or something like.
But she was
not
playing
like a
love interest and stuff.
Yeah,
you know, it's very similar.
but not in the same way. Like it's from her point of view in this film or whatever. But it's hard to say. Like I don't want to judge it off one film I've seen.
Yeah,
but
that's fair.
in this, I think she's like fine. I don't think like. I see what he says, like tasked with carrying it. Like it's fair because it's on her shoulders essentially. So, but I think the story could have helped a bit more. But nah. I feel like I would agree with this take. It seems most of it.
Yeah. Next one. So this is from Maura McDonald of the Seattle Times. It ends with us. It's a strange mixture of swoony romance and literal gut punch, filled with odd choices, flat dialogue, and occasional comic relief in the form of Jenny Slate, who is her best friend.
Yeah, her best friend.
Yeah, that was a bit of a weird situation as well. So she was opening up this flower shop. This girl came in looking for a job, and then she didn't want a job, and then she came back for the job. It
was all in like 5 seconds. Like, but I don't like flowers. And then Blake Lively's like, Lily's like, I don't like flowers either. And they kind of bond quickly, and they're like, I'll work for you. You can work with me if you want.
Yeah.
And it kind of just went. But I'd pretty much... I was going to say, if I would review, that's kind of, if that's only obviously one line or whatever, but I'd pretty much agree with that, essentially. Like, Jenny Slate's fine. Like, she does have some funny moments, but I'm like, that's not the point of the film, right? It's meant to deal with it, you know, the serious stuff. But no, I would agree. I do think the dialogue's a bit odd, because that's what I mean. Most of it's like romantic, and it is very much like, ooh, you know.
Yeah.
And it's just like, but no, I don't know if there's much I'd, you know, break down on this, but I'd pretty much agree with most of it.
So what do you think about the addition of the comedian as the husband of Jenny Slate's character?
Well, they're both comedians, but I think it's fine. Like, I don't think they're bad. Like, yet again, they're not in it for like a great part. They're not like the main focus, but I do like their characters. They're both fun loving and, you know, they seem to get along very well, very open and talkative, but that's what I mean. It doesn't make or break the film, right? But she does have some cool moments. But I did like her moment. If there was any moments I cry was when she was talking to Lily at the end there about when it all went down and talking at a personal point. She's like, as a sister, I'd like you to forgive her, but as your best friend, I would not be your friend anymore if you take him back. And I'm like, it was very powerful for me. Yeah. Considering all the other stuff that happened in this film.
100%.
Because I was like, that, you know, as someone that cares for you and like actually like admits to being like, you shouldn't be with my brother.
No, it was a good moment as well. And the reason why I brought up the comedian is because it seems like these days there are a lot of people without the acting training, but because they are well known on other platforms, like like a comedian or Amy Schumer, for example, she's got her own movie, and
I don't know if she's successful anymore, but
but I'm saying like because when people get famous in other platforms nowadays, it seems like a part of the formula to bring them into the movies and leverage.
It's just like
fame.
most things, right? Yeah, you leverage your fame and other audience to like funnel into anything else, whether that's music, movies. Could even be other like social platforms like, you know, YouTube or TikTok or anything. It's just how it is. Leveraging audiences from other facets. But which is like Jenny Slate, as she talks about in this, she's been in plenty of things and done acting and stuff and being a comedian. So even her husband, I don't know his name,
Hassan.
but he's been in. I've seen him in other stuff, and you know, so it's not like he's like there for the name. Like either of them are there for their name, right? Blake Lively's the biggest person in this film, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And she's nearly the most problematic person for this film. So.
I mean, like at the moment, Matt Rife is in quite a few movies. Like he's becoming more famous because of his comedy, and now he's in a lot of movies. All right, and
Last one.
It ends with us. Tries to balance the realities of domestic violence inside of rom-com and a female empowerment movie. All suffer in the process.
By Mark Kennedy, Associated Presses. I don't know if it was a female empowerment movie. I didn't feel like that at all. What was the female empowerment of this film?
I think
she got a job.
Yes, and
she had a successful flower shop. That was empowering.
And in the end, she decided to leave.
And she got beaten up by her husband.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what was empowering about? I think that's wrong. Like, what female empowerment? She literally got abused by her husband. Okay, I just disagree completely with his take just because of that. What? That was not the point.
Yeah.
Like that I feel like the point of the film like washed over his head completely. Like I do agree with like his first take about like the rom-com stuff.
Yeah.
But female empowerment, there was no point in this film that I felt like, oh, this is doing that at all.
Yeah. Felt
like it was a very on the point about like dealing with domestic abuse.
Yeah.
And her just trying to make her own success.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like from the beginning. It's quite a long story, and it wasn't like instant success. Like that would be the only thing I would think of, like empowering women with showing they can be successful. Like, and it feels a part of the film and her character. It doesn't feel too amiss or anything, right? But I don't know. That's already just made me upset.
So I picked the good one
talking
then.
about the movie.
Yeah.
But,
so I picked a good one then.
Well,
no, I mean like, but in my opinion, I think the female empowerment aspect is only at the end when she decided to break off the relationship. That she's like, yep, this is where it ends. But I agree with you. It's like, but I don't think that's the main point of the movie.
Yeah, to put it in to be like, that's why it suffered. I'm like, that's not why it suffered.
Yeah. So now I'm curious to hear your opinion on this movie.
So even to the Star Wars music, that's not leading into anything. Because there was a lot of the takes I would agree with, like the whole like rom-com and romantic parts of this film. I really didn't enjoy that much, but I understand why they're there, and that could have been stronger to make me like more interested in it. Because I did like the aspect, because the story is about her current partner and the ex, her first love that she runs into and kind of plays a part in this film. And it does kind of like whatever happens in the relationship with her new boyfriend and then kind of crosses back over into the past and what happened with her ex, Atlas. I learned his name at the end. I'm like, Atlas, that's a sick name. But I like that, but I just feel like it could have been done either maybe a little bit quicker or a bit more to the point. But I do like the aspect of like Atlas has dealt with abuse himself. He knows that Lily's father abused her mother. And that when he finds out second interaction when he goes to his restaurant and she has a black eye from accidentally getting knocked when he like dropped the thing out of the oven and he like smacked her in the face, and he overreacts because he understands what she's been through and also know what it's like himself to go through that, or even because his mother was abused and then he like ran away or kicked out of the house.
No, his father was abusing him.
Yeah, and then he hit him back and then ran out of the house or got kicked out of his house by his mother. Yeah. Same situation of like the parent takes the side of the abuser rather than their son or child. But I like that aspect, but it was just, I don't think it was played off as well as it could have. Because it kind of feels like it hits the beat. You're like, as soon as I saw this, I'm like, okay, this guy's going to abuse her. She's going to like fall back to this guy and then they're going to fall in love again. Because the aspect I really didn't like is that she keeps the child. I'm surprised she didn't get rid of the child after this, because it's kind of like a terrible situation to be in, to be pregnant and your husband abuses you and then like essentially tries to so it was, I just felt like it was strange for the character to like go through with having the kid. It was used later in the film for like title, got to say the title where it ends with us, where it's like the message of like, okay, this is it, this is where the abuse ends with us. But that's what I felt out of place. I'm like, I don't know if that, it felt more that she would have moved, like got like you don't. I don't know. That's what I saw. I'm like, this feels a bit weird for her to have this child when you're from your abuser, and then even be like cordial. I can understand being cordial, but it takes a while before she's like,
Yeah.
yeah, we're not getting back together.
Yeah.
But I think it's meant to be for that like ending to be like, oh, look, here it is.
Yeah.
And because even that's probably the most interesting part of the movie, like the lady was saying the last 30 minutes where she cried, because that's when it all kind of happened. And it took a bit of time for me to get there. And that's why I was probably like, take it away. What about you, Darren? You go into it and then we'll talk about
Yeah. I mean,
maybe
like,
who we agree with or who we don't.
no, that's fair. I mean, I agree with quite a few things that you said, and in my opinion, I think first of all, this based on the movie itself, it gets into the issues of like telling us too much without showing, and I think a lot of the aspects.
I do think it shows us, but I think it lingers on the romantic stuff too much for my person. Anyway, I'm butting into your your opinion.
No. I think that's very fair. I mean, in my opinion, like some of the things that, for example, the romantic side, we don't need to see a lot of it. You know, we can just to see just enough.
Well, just to see the chemistry, you just feel like, oh, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Which is two sexy people. Like, all right,
yeah, exactly. I get it. Yeah. This is why Ryan Reynolds was a bit upset on set as well. The other aspect that I kind of like about this movie is because when we think about the issue of domestic abuse, it's not like it's my personal understanding is it's always ugly, but in this movie it's all about surrounded by flowers and extravagant, and she was from an affluent family, so from the backgrounds that we didn't really associate with domestic violence, I kind of like that aspect. Sometimes it's not what we think it is. Another thing that the other thing that I didn't like about this movie is because I guess visually it doesn't create enough conflicts for the audience to really care about the character per se. Probably because it's supposed to be underwhelming in a way. Like for example, if I was watching Gridiron Gang starring The Rock, Dwayne Johnson. This was when he was not going to go down the action route.
Not stuck in a jungle somewhere.
Yeah, but one of the kids that got into the school, he was going through
Abuse.
An abusive relationship. So the guy was his mom's boyfriend, came over, took all her money. That scene was my understanding of domestic abuse. Like very, very ugly, very, very violent. But in this movie, it was a bit different.
I'll butt in again here. I think that's like the point of the film.
Yes.
That it isn't seen.
Yes.
And especially from her family, it's very hidden.
Yeah.
She knows about it, the mum knows about it, the dad knows about it.
Yeah.
Because even the dad goes and beats up the boyfriend, Atlas, he beats him up.
Yes.
Because they find out. But that's what I mean. It's more from the point of like not taking the acceptance and moving on from it.
Yeah.
Because she even asked her mother, and her mother was like, yeah, I probably wouldn't have never broken up with him, even though he abused me.
Yeah.
And like, even with the kid, that's what I get what you mean. Like, it's not like a poignant big thing.
Yeah.
I don't think it's meant to be, because it does kind of happen and not acknowledged.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it's trying to say, that they need to acknowledge it more.
Yeah.
Because it's not always that big, powerful moment of like someone storming into the house or like making a ruckus. It is kind of those quiet moments in solitude when maybe no one's seeing. But anyway.
No. I mean, that's a completely valid point. And I think I understand what the movie is trying to do, but what I'm saying is, in order for the movie to achieve that, it actually kind of sacrificed the power of those moments, because like you just like the review said, like most of the powerful moments happen in the last 30 minutes, but even when those moments happen, it's kind of underwhelming for me. For example, like if we talk about the two moments where Lily got kind of abused by her husband, the first one was set up as an accident. The first one I was like, okay, like like when he took the pants out.
Yeah, and it was just like he burned his hand. And it was like a reaction.
Yeah, correct. So like that can be argued.
The first one, you're like, okay, that seems like an accident. Doesn't seem like a big deal.
Correct. And then the second one, like when we got the flashback when he pushed her down the stairs. I mean, for me, I understand what the movie is trying to do, but as an audience, does it really magnify the fact that this is a representation of domestic abuse? Maybe not 100%.
Like I was saying, no, I think it does, but because the point is, it's saying that she didn't want to admit it.
Yeah.
She didn't want to accept it.
Yeah.
And then when she does, all those moments come back.
Yeah.
Like because when we're first introduced to the character, he comes up the rooftop and smashes the shit out of a chair.
Yeah.
So it already shows that he has these issues, but she went forward with him anyway, knowing that he had these issues.
Yeah.
And that she probably, as soon as she saw that, it's like, oh, this guy's probably got some issues. I probably shouldn't deal with him.
Yeah.
But then it's like even the accident with the the pan.
Yeah.
At the moment, it seems like an accident, but then it's like, oh, should he be flinging his hands around like this? But and then even with the stairs, it still seemed like an accident at the time. But when you look back at it, it's like, oh, it seems a bit more deliberate in like how he didn't want to deal with her. Yeah. So and then even like later, the more obvious one of him like really like going at it, but. I think that's the point. Like you don't realize how bad it is till you get to the last point. Like it isn't always about being showy, which I do appreciate. I just wish it was done maybe a bit better. Yeah. Or even more of the focus of the film. I know it's tough stuff to deal with. Yeah. And you want to push up all this other stuff. But no, that's what I would say. Like I'm not trying to
that's completely understandable. So so overall, which side do you agree with more?
So I'd probably say the critics. I don't think I would probably say it's like mid. It's like it's fine. Yeah. But then I don't think it's an amazing movie. I think it does do some things well, but not enough. Yeah. And then it's just like a bit long, a bit like strenuous, and you're like, okay. Even though it's hard to be like get to the like more interesting stuff, which is a bit rough when it's like some serious issues. But yeah. So I would say I would be on the side of the critic more. Yeah,
and I think 56% is like right on the money.
I think that's probably perfect. Yeah. What about you, Darren?
No, I have to side with the critics as well. I watched this movie on double speed, like I said, because I couldn't get through like the first setup part, and I completely understand what the movie is trying to represent and tell the audience, but I agree with one of the comments. Like this is like a missed opportunity. Like the issue, it deserves much more attention, and it deserves to be represented much better than this movie.
And that's before we touch on like all the other stuff with Blake Lively before this film, but that adds on to it, right? Yeah. Like before whether or not the movie's good or not, that doesn't help. Even though it still did fairly well in the box office, but
and the audience, like the people,
it's fun. That's what I found funny as well, that the audience had the highest score when it's like, that's who it's going to affect more than the critics, right? Is her image is more ruined or is ruined by this film because of her own things. Yeah. We won't get into it, but that's what I found funny as well. That's why I was surprised it didn't have a huge budget, but it still did fairly well.
Fairly well, yes.
Is that a good point to lean on? Is there anything you want to talk about?
I think the marketing and the PR campaign can be a separate episode because
really could be, honestly.
So we are talking about just the audience and the critics at the moment. All right, so I guess we can move on to the next movie.
Let's move on to the next one.
So this is the 2024 triptych drama directed and written by Yorgos Lanthimos.
Oh, you got it down. Not calling him the yogurt man anymore.
Well, I mean, I think he deserves some respect after winning the Oscar for Poor Things.
Oh, yeah.
And he got all of his favorite actors and actresses for this movie. So Emma Stone, Jesse Plemons, Willem Dafoe, Margaret Qualley. I think she's becoming...
she's huge at the moment, especially after Substance.
Hong Cho, the Vietnamese representation. All right. And so this movie got a really limited budget of only $15 million.
But it seems more right with his kind of the way he is more of like a smaller director, right? Or even like more of like a character director, right? He isn't a big... Like Poor Things is his biggest thing. Like if you've watched any of his other films, you can see it's like, wow, that's huge. Even compared to this, you're like, you know, that's kind of more his style of this kind of film. Yeah. And you mentioned that you went and saw this movie in a theater. Well, I wanted to, but because it had such small release, there was only limited theaters. So it was hard to like get there, and I was like, oh shit, I wish I did. Well, obviously, some people went and watched it, and they gave us their reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. So the critics, out of 266 reviews, they gave this movie 72%. So a bit more than average. Whereas the audience, out of more than 100 reviews, only gave this movie 48%. Is that the first one where there's more critics than audience? Yeah. I think there we go. The critics like this movie more than the audience. Oh, I'm not surprised that there's less audience because it's not really a big film, right? And it's not going to draw in like, even with The End of Us, that drew in a shit ton more people than that. But anyway. Yeah. And this movie is a bit different. It's not a one full movie. It's actually a collection of three smaller movies. 3 films. And the connection between the 3 movies is this RMF character. And I'm curious to hear your theories on this, these initials, because in the end, Yorgos doesn't have any kind of explanation for the character. What do you think those characters mean? Oh God, just guess. I mean, like there are no right or wrong answers. Well, like, there's some crazy theories going online. I didn't look. I was thinking about it, but I was like, there's so much going on. Like, and even the stories don't. You'd maybe say the first short film's the one that talks about him the most. And only at the end, it's like the final thing at the end where he kind of like comes back from the dead.
Yeah.
But it's just like, I was thinking about it, like, I don't fucking get it at all. I was trying to like understand like if it was meant to be like different points of his life and it's like explaining it or even like going through all this trauma and like things and rebirth and stuff. I was like, oh.
So
bit over my head, maybe.
No. I mean, that's completely fine. And I found it's like two very funny theories. The first one is a bit more serious. They said R is short for redemption, M is short for manipulation, and F is short for faith. So the three initials are separate, represent the three stories.
And that's good. I like that one.
And the other one is just RMF means random motherfucker.
Which also kind of is a valid point.
Yeah.
Because it's not really about him.
Yeah.
But they're both good. I like both of them.
All right. So
they're not the reviews? Oh, damn.
No, not the reviews. So for this one, let's go through the critics' reviews
first.
So Steve Pond from The Rap says, kindness, which displays precious little of its title virtue, is a cornucopia. I can't really remember.
Cornucopia? I think
cornucopia of black humor, dark thrills, and assorted murders, couplings, and things that make you go, ew.
Ew. Got me. I do like that first line. Yeah, definitely no kindness in these films. They're brutal.
Yes.
They're brutal.
Yes.
Black, definitely. Pretty much agree with everything. Maybe not the ew bit, but I do think it does touch on very, serious issues.
Yeah.
And, serious topics, and it can be a lot. That's what I always think about his film. He always touches on like serious issues and uses it to like push his stories forward. And I think that's like that's why I can imagine something like this not getting a lot of people to watch it.
Yeah.
Because someone would probably say, like, what's it about? It's like, well,
yeah.
like, there's a lot.
Yes.
It's not like publicized. Like, even though it deals with stuff like The End With Us does, but it's like harder to be like, oh yeah, there's like a manipulation, assault, murder, cults.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like serious things going on in these films.
Yeah.
But no, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
That's probably one there's not too much I would like disagree with there.
Yeah. If I compare this movie to a fruit, I wouldn't use a tomato.
No.
I would use a durian. So you either hate it or you love it. It's spiky.
That's a good one.
Smells bad. It makes
Smells
you go,
bad. Didn't smell too bad.
Yeah. All right. The next one is from Stephen Romel from The Australian.
Oh, there we go.
A wonderfully acted absurdist drama that made me look away at times and laugh out loud at others.
Straight to the point. Nothing too crazy there. That's another one I would probably agree with. Like, yeah.
Did you have to look away at certain parts of the movie?
When I watched it again, I thought I can see why.
Yes.
Like, there's definitely points where you're like, oh my God. Like, in the first short film where he has to do this act of hitting a guy in his car and he gets essentially cut off by Willem Dafoe's character for not doing it. And then in the end of the film, to like get back in his good graces, he wheels the guy out of the hospital, puts him on the road and runs him over multiple times to kill him.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God. And I feel like that's nearly the nicest thing that goes on.
Yeah.
If you'd like jump into the second story, how far you want to talk about that, about cutting up and eating body parts.
Yeah.
So there's like a lot of stuff I can understand where it's like, I don't want to watch this.
No, I agree. I think my most uncomfortable moments come from the second movie as well. Like when he asked his wife to, like, I want to eat your fingers.
I'm actually
I want to
hungry
eat your
now.
thumb.
Can you just cut me off your thumb?
That's insane.
And then even later he's like, oh, I wasn't actually that hungry. I didn't want to eat it. It looked disgusting or something.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my
Just throw it
God.
away.
It was brutal.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. No, that's fair. Did you laugh out loud during the movies? At any points of the movies?
The end of it, I probably did.
Oh.
When Emma Stone's character is driving with Emma's character, and then she's like talking about what they're gonna do, and then she like swerves across the road and says, shit, and then she like crashes and kills the character that's gonna like save her, and I'm like, that was pretty funny.
Yeah. I couldn't find any humorous moments throughout the movie, unfortunately. But probably because the music is done very well.
Like
the single piano
on the
notes,
music, it's very haunting. A lot of it is like, oh God.
Yeah. And it makes me very uncomfortable. So like I wasn't in the mood for humor.
I think that was most of the point. It wasn't aiming for humor. I think there were some points that were funny, but not like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we go on to the last comment, I want to discuss Jesse Plemons in this movie. He received a lot of compliments for his performances. What do you think about his performances?
I would agree because they're all three completely different like characters. So the first one's kind of like I wouldn't even know, like a corporate man's not
Yeah.
even right, but
Yeah.
he's just kind of like a guy that's life is driven for him.
Yes.
And he does a great job of like representing the idea of you having no choice over your things you do in your life. And then when you do, you're like, what do I do? Like when you've got so much choice, he doesn't know what to do with himself.
Yeah.
And then in the second one of being like a policeman / husband,
Yeah.
and then him dealing with all the issues he does in that, and even like being some kind of like psychotic, paranoid character he plays off very well. And then even finally in that final story when he's kind of like one of the cult followers, a little bit that's his like smallest role, but just does a good job of just being like a dude following this cult. More sneaky and conniving. He's like, oh, you can trust me. I'm not going to dob you in. And then obviously does dob her in. So,
Yeah. And I think one of the aspects that I like about his performances is the discomfort that his characters exudes. Like during the first movie, like he's like we were supposed to empathize or feel bad for him. But
well,
like,
you do.
Yeah, but
until maybe the end.
Yeah, but then like something weird just exudes out of the character. And I think he did that very well.
I think the point where I'd really started when he like finally doesn't do these things and when he's trying to pick up women and he does this trick where he like fakes getting hurt. And I'm like, you kind of like, oh, this is a bit weird and creepy.
Yeah.
Like, that was when I was first like, okay, maybe I don't feel so much sympathy for this character anymore.
Yeah.
Because then when he literally smashes his foot into something to like, because he doesn't know how to do these things or even try. So I agree with that. Like he does a great job of like being a bit weird.
But we get to the final comment. So from Namrata Joshi from the New Indian Express. It's a cinema that is edgy and plays with excesses. Certainly not everybody's cup of tea, but one that can't be ignored. It's riveting, in fact.
I would agree with that as well.
Yeah. Seems like it's nobody's cup of tea based on the audience score.
Well, it's maybe I'll discuss it more at the end, but yeah, it is definitely not everyone's movie. Like you said, the Durance, perfect. It's kind of the perfect thing of just like when you think of people enjoying movies, what do they want? They want to enjoy it, have a good time, and have fun. I would say you'd probably have none of those watching this film. You can still enjoy it, but you're maybe not having as fun with the characters, right?
Yeah, it's definitely memorable. Like you will be talking about this movie.
Well, that's what I was thinking because I watched it again like a couple of days ago, getting ready for this because I already watched it a while ago, and I was still like, I was still having fun watching it again, but it was like, oh, I can see why like the audience don't like it so much, right?
Yeah. Then let's see what the audience say.
Yeah, let's get to them.
First one, 2.5
here we
stars. I'm someone who really liked Poor Things and found The Lobster disturbing and interesting. Kinds of Kindness feels pointless.
Damn.
Pros, it's well acted and stylishly shot. The concepts are intriguing and some of the moments are engaging. Cons, it's twice as long as it ought to be. If all of the characters are wooden and strange, it's hard to invest in anyone. It's a movie about unlikable robot people in interesting situations. It could have been fun and absurd if it wasn't a 3-hour slog.
Damn. See, these are reviews I like. They get into, they get into what they like. It's not like, I don't like it. So, like...
It's talking about a lobster, one of your favorite movies as well.
I would agree with what he said with that as well, but... Or her. I don't know if they're a man or...
Yeah, I didn't take the names. Sorry.
But the pro... I would agree with the pros, but I would probably disagree with the cons. Like, I do think it is long, and that's like a harder thing to like entrance for a lot of people where it's like, oh, maybe I'll watch this. And oh, shit, it's like, was it nearly 3 hours or something? Because it nearly could have been, like what I've said before, nearly could have been a mini series where these are all just like episodes, like 40-minute, 50-minute episodes, which is fair. But I don't believe the robot thing. I do think all the actors and the plot is written quite well. That I do feel for all these I do feel for all these situations. I don't feel like they're just playing out these absurd situations just for my delight. I do feel sold by all these characters.
Yeah.
Like you said, like all the actors do a great job of selling all of their, all the characters they play, especially when they're 3 different characters in 3 different films, or even maybe more. And Margaret Qualley when she plays twins as well.
Yeah.
So even more. But that's what I mean. I feel like, they did a great, I personally think they did a great job.
Yeah. They say that this is a well-acted movie, but then they're talking about the actual characters. Like the characters are wooden and strange. Well, they are definitely strange, but I don't think the characters are wooden. There are some moments where they express different emotions, right? So, and they said it's a movie about unlikable robot people.
Yeah, that's what.
What do you think about that statement?
Well, I already said I don't agree with that. That's like I don't know if it's just because there was like 3 different stories and it's hard to like maybe for some people to really buy in for like a short story to like really take in and taking these characters for being believable. I feel like it still did a good job. For me personally, it did a good enough job that I bought into all the characters, really.
Yeah.
Like, I can see that. Like, it makes sense, but not how I felt.
All right. And next one is 1.5 star, well-acted trash. 3-hour-long tales of jacked thinking, sexual control, and just general garbage.
Damn.
Yeah, tell us how you really feel about this movie.
Yeah, Jared. Thanks. Well, you got the name there. Well,
in November 2024, so quite recently.
Well, I agree it's well acted. I disagree with everything else, maybe except for the long part. But I don't know, like, if they would sit through and like try to, like, I don't know, because that's the thing. Do people sit down and like think about these films much, or they're just like see what they what it's presented and like, oh well, there we go. Sexual control as well, like, not really, but general garbage. I don't have much else to say, which will pretty much disagree with this statement.
No, I mean, like, it definitely well acted. I personally, I didn't think this is a bad movie. I think, like, sometimes people forget about the another aspect of cinema is like it's supposed to challenge your views on things, right? Like, if you think about one of the movies that we discussed before, Kill Bill, that movie was violent as fuck on the screen, blood everywhere, violence, but it changes the way that we perceive cinema. And this might be one of those movies that you didn't like at first, but then when you see more absurdist movie in the future, it's like, this is like quite mild comparing to whatever we have for the time.
Yeah, definitely. I would agree with that.
Yeah, but garbage. Well, I mean,
thanks, Jared.
Yeah, have you seen The Room?
Yeah, I was going to say, have you seen? Well, he'd probably enjoy that more.
Yeah. And last one.
Oh, here we go. Another big one.
0.5 star. So a truly awful movie. I don't understand how the audience or reviewer scores are as high as they are. The movie felt like watching bad improv, like the worst improv. The cast is obviously phenomenal and talented, so it was the directorial choice to have the actors speak with a flat and emotionless delivery, which made for unsurprisingly flat and affectless dialogue. The story was bizarre and made no sense, which combined with the emotionless delivery left me with no felt sense of connection or interest in anything that happened in the movie or any of the characters.
Damn. I'm surprised it went over their head considering how well thought out their thoughts are.
Yeah.
Like, it's always hard to like read something where you like completely disagree and then even like don't understand their thought process. So it's always weird to like, how do you, because it isn't just like one statement of like, oh, it's truly awful. Okay, you don't like it. But then it's just like, you don't understand how people enjoy things. I can disagree. I can disagree with people.
Yeah.
Whether or not, it's had a lot of good reviews or a lot of bad reviews, whether I enjoy it or not. But I'm not like, oh, I can't believe people like this. Well,
yeah,
I can, but like,
I guess we could say the opposite as well. I can't believe that you didn't like this.
Well,
you know what I mean? Like,
I can see why people wouldn't like this movie.
Yeah,
but I wouldn't be like, I don't understand why people did like the movie, and bad improv. I'm like, what? Like, I'm like, oh my God, you just like watching Ryan Metal movies, don't you? But that's like bad improv. I was like, what? Because it's hard when he's like obviously missed the point completely, and then like, that's why he feels like it's bad improv, because I don't understand the story.
Yeah.
So if you don't understand what's going on, why do you understand any of the characters' point of views or why they're doing the things they are?
Yeah.
And then you think it's emotionless because you don't understand what's happening.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you just don't understand a point, it's going to make everything else feel worse, right?
Fair enough.
Which I can see. I think that's what I would say into this thing which is I would agree with all of it, and that they didn't understand what was happening. Whether or not that's a film's fault, who knows? But I think it's all right not to like a film, but don't drag it onto other people to also like say like, you should all hate this movie as well, essentially, which I completely agree with. Okay. Even with movies I truly hate and don't think are good, I'm not gonna. I'll probably laugh at you, maybe, but I'm not gonna be like, okay, I'm not gonna take away your fun if you enjoy a film.
Fair enough.
Because down at the end of the day, it is entertainment.
Yes,
you're meant to find some kind of joy out of it.
Yeah.
So
and if we compare this movie to, I guess, food and cuisine, some people are more adventurous than others. Like if you try like the sea urchin or the balut from the Vietnamese community, some people hated it and some people like it.
Or a durian.
or a durian, exactly. So personally, I enjoy this movie, and I think it challenges the audience and challenges the viewers. I mean, we have seen some other movies where it's just like a mindless movie about some spectacles happening on screen. It doesn't make you think about anything. So I personally enjoy this movie. So I would side with the critics more.
I would agree with what you said as well. Like, there's so many films that are just like CGI mess, and you're just like, okay, whatever. Well, there's a lot going on in these films where you can, like, you know, really delve into what's going on here. You got the first story about, like, do you have any control over your life? And do you want control over your life? They're like really big questions you can ask yourself and be like, would it be great if a rich man just gave me everything I wanted and I just had to do what he said, even if things I don't want to do? And then you got the second one of like traumatic loss and then dealing with finding your partner again and then being like, she doesn't seem right. There's some weird things going on with her. I would say that's probably the weirdest one. That ending always gets me when at the end she cuts out her liver and then she comes back and I'm like, is that his delusion or is that real? But that's what it's like. It's about the idea of thinking about what actually happened. Is it his delusion or was he right? Was she some weird monster? And then the final one is literally like dealing with like sexual abuse and cults and how you deal with abuse. Like you escape, and she escaped into this cult because she's like, I want to get away from my life. Because we see when she deals with I assume her ex and her daughter, her ex is a horrible person and using these things against her and gaslighting her. So I think it does a great job of portraying all these stories. And I feel like interesting, like you said, thought-provoking and things to think about. Like I know that all a bit absurd and weird things happen in all of them. So it's like maybe a bit off-putting, but no, I would agree with the critics as well. Like I really enjoyed this film, and even the second time I watched it, it is long. I won't doubt that. And I do kind of wish, like, I would even recommend watching these like episodes separately at a time if you don't want to waste time watching like for 3 hours. Be like, watch the first one, watch the second one. Because I don't know how much you want to delve into like what every short film means to each other, but. I do think they're enjoyable by themselves without watching the whole thing. So
that's a good point. And there's another aspect that we didn't really touch on, which is the supernatural aspect as well.
Yeah, I was thinking about that as well. But
like in the second movie, like the fact that in the end they were talking about like an island where dogs dominate everything else.
So that was just her, like that was her story of her trying to make her dad understand what she went through on that island using this, story of saying the dogs would give us food. But I didn't want to wait for the good stuff. So I always ate the chocolate that I don't like because she doesn't like chocolate. But she says if you can eat and survive on something you don't like, I'd rather do that. And I think it's meant to be a metaphor for they probably had cannibalism. They had to deal with cannibalism on the island. And that she maybe the bits she would prefer to eat but never got, so she had to eat the unsavory bits. But she thought it's better for me to survive and eat the unsavory bits than it is to die. So that's her metaphor. That's why I was like, we nearly could do an episode on just these films itself. That's why I was like, I'd really want to talk about this film, but I won't go. That's why I was like, this episode isn't really about delving into the films too much. But no, these are fantastic.
All right.
I don't understand how people don't like this.
And the final movie that we're going to discuss. The last one, which is also the most controversial one.
I would definitely think so.
So
maybe not that last guy, but definitely probably for everyone else.
So Star Wars: The Last Jedi, released in 2017. It's got 91% from the critics out of 482 reviews, and 41% out of 100,000 reviews from the audience. And as a Star Wars fans as well, I'm very, very excited to hear what you think about this movie.
I think you'll be a little disappointed maybe.
Okay, so a bit of a background story as well. So in 2012, George Lucas sold his production company to Disney.
For how much?
I didn't know.
I think it was like $4 billion. So
$4 billion.
Not too much.
Since then, there were a couple of releases.
Oh, really? Has Disney been releasing some films?
Quite a lot.
Under
a few different names. Marvel, Lucasfilms. So this movie is part of a trilogy. And this is a big cast of a lot of big names as well. So
I wouldn't say big names. A lot of them were up and coming. Like I would even say out of the new ones, it was probably why have I forgotten the guy that plays Poe? Why have I forgotten his name?
Oscar Isaac.
Oscar Isaac. He's really the biggest guy outside of the main actors from Star Wars. Like
fair enough.
you know.
And Adam Driver was
and Adam Driver,
yeah,
of
was
course,
on the
I
way
don't know,
up
I
as
forget.
well. Yeah,
He was probably just as big.
But you're right. There were two new names in this trilogy. So Daisy Ridley, who portrays Rey, and John Boyega portrayed Finn. So The Last Jedi was made on a huge budget, $300 million.
Good old Disney.
And it definitely made its money back. Box office worldwide is $1.3 billion.
Not too much then.
Less than a month.
Less than a month. So it probably didn't make its money, right?
$620 million domestically.
It's crazy.
So-
well, there you go. That's
Yeah.
I wonder if they made back their $4 billion they spent on it.
Well, obviously, it's made more than a quarter of the money already.
Already one film.
All right, so let's dive into the reviews.
The Last Jedi.
Last Jedi. Which one do you want to go first, the critics or the audience? I'll let
Let's
you
go.
choose.
Let's go. The viewers. Let's go the bad stuff
Let's
first.
start with the bad stuff.
Let's delve into that.
All right,
first.
straight off the bat. Fandango C in November 2021. So 4 years after the movie was released.
Oh shit! Yeah, that's
Yeah,
a long
yeah.
time. Long time to process, Darren.
Yeah, it's a
lot
long
to
movie,
take in.
yeah.
It's a long to take in.
Right. 1 star. It's a verified audience score.
He didn't give it a half. He gave it a half. He gave it a star.
I almost don't even want to call this one a Star Wars movie because it was written like the previous movies never existed. But it is by far the worst movie with Star Wars in the title. Both the plot and characters make no sense in or out of the Star Wars universe.
So this guy obviously hasn't watched Rise of Skywalker, so that's always interesting to see, and maybe not the prequels either. So,
All right, let's get into it.
so he literally just said he didn't know the other movies previously existed, which is wrong because it's got everything from Star Wars in it.
Yeah.
So it's just wrong. It just does things with characters they love that they don't like.
Fair enough.
He doesn't like the treatment of Luke. Maybe what happens with Leia.
Yes.
You know, it's got like Chewie. It's got the Falcon in it. You know, they're in space. They got lightsabers.
Yep.
It's just people. It's so hard because this Star Wars fans can be so divisive.
Yeah.
Because it's been, however you feel about all the latest Disney stuff, but I'd say there's been more bad stuff than good stuff. But I can see why this movie was like the first thing what really, split people on, and then also it's just like no sense. There was sense,
All right.
Like I was trying to think if there's anything I agree with. No, I don't think there's anything I agree with.
Yeah. I mean, like from
a
non-Star Wars,
new to the film and new to the ideas of what a Star Wars is. Considering this is the first Star Wars movie you've watched,
Yeah.
his previous first statement's wrong because all you know is The Last Jedi.
Yeah, I mean, in my humble opinion, like I haven't seen all the other Star Wars movies. I think that the plot and the characters in this movie kind of are not bad. Like I was able to follow the story and I understand I understood the motivation and things like that as well. So I kind of disagree with this.
It is very much a toxic response to something they don't like, which is fine. That's what the internet's for, right? Ooh,
KTD 3.5.
So that's like they enjoyed it.
This is also 4 years after the release
A lot
date.
of people, take a while to, really get,
Too long,
sit on it.
too loud, but overall pretty good.
What? That's a weird way to start that. But all right.
Not my favorite Star Wars movie.
I think that's fine. Clearly not as angry as The Last Man.
Yeah.
So, I should start almost. Too long, too loud. That was good. It's just like,
Hey, 3.5 stars. Yeah, 3.5
I can understand, like, Star Wars movies can be pretty loud. Like, there's a lot of space and battles and explosions and stuff. I think that's fair.
Yeah. But if you think this movie is long, have you seen any of the Marvel movies?
I know there's even a lot of movies are long these days now, but
Yeah.
I feel like if you're not already enjoying a film, it's going to feel long if it goes for a long time, right?
Yeah.
There's not much I'd pick about this, if I'd agree. It is a long film. It can be loud. Pretty good, sure. If you enjoyed it, it's pretty good. And if you like other Star Wars films,
Yeah.
why not?
Yeah,
there
but-
are more.
But that doesn't mean that you hate this movie. Though.
Yeah.
Like you just don't
And
like it as much as the other
3.5
ones.
is just like above average, right?
Yeah.
I would say 3's average, right? So
Yeah.
you enjoyed it more than not. So that's fair. Considering these are meant to be the bad ones.
All
no,
right.
here we go.
All right. This one is in November 2024. Very recently.
I was going to... They took a long time to think about this film. And then also 2 stars and the first line is good movie.
Good movie in general. Not a good Star Wars movie.
Ooh.
Cinematically, it is good. But if you care about the lore of Star Wars at all, then this isn't for you. Spoilers!
Oh shit! Everyone, cover your eyes.
The bombers used to take out the dreadnought are the stupidest design ever, which is just a spit in the face to the other designs we have seen through the years, such as the explosives used by Jango Fett in the Attack of the Clones. Also, Luke Skywalker's character developments from the beloved original trilogy is completely thrown out the window and is replaced with a personality that was created around the plot of the movie, not the character himself. In conclusion, while it had many good aspects and was overall quite good, lore-wise, it was an absolute clusterfuck.
What a weird review. So you're not reviewing the movie itself, but you're reviewing it as a Star Wars film. Mm-hmm. So, like, I can understand the point. Like, I get what they mean with the Jango Fett stuff, but that's like a private man who's a bounty hunter that's got his own designs compared to a rebellion that's trying to make it on their own, and they're not like, oh, let's use our own money to let's get more Jango Fett ships. It's like, all right, okay. And I can understand Luke's point because it's like, he overcomes stuff at the end of the original films, but it's going to come out sad. But I enjoyed what Luke was like in this film. I liked him as a grumpy old man that was a bit over it. I know it's probably like not what people wanted. Obviously, people wanted Luke to be this kind of light of the Jedis, and he would be carrying on and making new Jedis and like carrying the light and teaching people and moving on. And I do think he explains it somewhat, maybe not great, but does explain why he's in this situation and kind of over it. But I can understand the points, but I don't. It's hard to be like it's a good movie, but because it's Star Wars, it's not good.
Yeah,
just say you don't like it. Like, don't be so humming and hawing. I can understand because I hate things about fandom. It's like, well, it was good, but it wasn't a good Star Wars film. And it's like, what do you mean? What? So should it just be a different film then? I don't know. There's a lot going on in this review.
Yeah. And I want to bring up an aspect of this review, which is the bombers. Because during this first battle scene, another Vietnamese actress appeared. So she was the elder sister of the Rose character who appeared later in the movie. So this character was portrayed by Veronica Ngo, and she only had 1 or 2 lines in
it was
her
like
scenes.
2 or 3 scenes, with that.
And I think she was just calling out a name. She didn't say anything.
Yeah, because it was to the other bomber that was meant to be releasing the payload or whatever, right?
Yep. And when I saw her in this scene, I was like, "This is absolutely amazing!" Like Vietnamese actress appear in a Star Wars movie. Are you kidding me? Like, this is like the pinnacle, right?
And I will add on to that bomber scene. That seems more realistic because then we had posing before where he literally flies past everything and never gets killed, right? Where the bomber seems more realistic, where it's like a slow moving ship that needs to drop this payload. Compared to like an ace pilot that like flies around and never gets hit once and like does all. Well, I'm sure he gets hit, but I mean like he kills off all the other dudes and saves the day, right? So it's you got your absurd bit with your like more realistic view. So it's like I don't know.
No, I understand, and personally, from a moviegoers, I like the design of the bombers because it's not supposed to be perfect. From the Resistance, you don't have all the resources, you don't have the money. Like you make things with what you have.
They're meant to be, meant to be on the lower side. You can see the Empire in this, like
the First Order,
the First Order, but they've got all like the big ships and the big technology. So.
Exactly. So it's not supposed to be perfect. Like if you already have a good design, then probably you wouldn't be called the Resistance. You would call like the Other Order or something. Right. So no, I disagree with the design of the bombers. I like the fact that our heroes are in a disadvantaged position and they have to fight their way out of it. Luke Skywalker.
Well, it's a bit hard for you because
I didn't see.
You didn't like grow up on Luke. This is like, well, I kind of did as well. But like a lot of these people that are coming from.
Yeah, but I understand his role in this movie. So he's supposed to be the mentor for the main character, right?
And is reluctant, right?
Yeah, which is fine. Which is. Which I think creates a good dynamic between him and Rey.
Right.
All right. Do we have another one? This is the last one.
I was going to say, I'm like, they're the ones I was expecting them all to be like, Darren, like that last one.
Yeah. No, I purposely picked like 1 star, 3 star, and 2.5 stars.
I'm surprised you gave it 2.
Yeah, well,
Considering it was a Star Wars movie.
there were a lot of 1-star comments.
I could imagine.
But I was like, well, I mean, like they're pretty much saying the same thing.
Yeah.
So I don't want to be like,
No, that's fair. But that's what I was expecting them all to be like. All right,
All right,
critic
then.
time.
The critics. The top critic, Stephanie Zacharek from Time magazine.
Time.
Director Rian Johnson's movie has a sense of humor about itself and a sense of joy, but its emotion, generosity, even in the midst of all the extravagant green screen work, is its best special effect. Sense of humor, sense of joy.
The humor was fine. I don't think it's like the strongest point of this film, to be honest. I can understand all the green screen stuff because it was trying to be more pinnacle with all the stuff with like Leia and Luke, especially at the end there when they're like going through all the at the end stuff there of him like coming back and like saving the day and stuff. That was all good. I really enjoyed that stuff like at the end. So I can see it, but the humor, it's fine. That's kind of like trying to be it, but it wasn't like I was going to say because like the humor is like that bloody casino planet. Like it's like the worst part of the film, but I don't know. I didn't find it like that. I don't watch it and laugh that much.
Yeah.
The only thing I would say I thought was really funny is that first scene with Luke and he looks at his old lightsaber and he throws it away.
Yeah, yeah.
I think I remember watching it and all my friends were probably shocked and I was laughing. I loved it. I loved the like, you know, looking at this important item in Star Wars history and Luke's just like, nah, fuck it.
In my opinion, it's like I didn't think that this movie had any sort of humorous moments. They did try to bring it in when Poe got captured by Kylo Ren, and he was like, "Oh, so should I talk first or do you talk first?"
Yeah.
So who talks first? You talk first? I talk first?
Yeah.
But I think it was a bit out of place, so I didn't enjoy that. So I think if any movie has good special effects, it should be a science fiction movie about space, right? So you know, like I kind of enjoy the green screen work in this movie. I think it was spectacular.
There's a lot of amazing scenes
Yes,
with it.
yeah, and it kind of makes sense because we're talking about like this huge battle between different powers. So and it makes me rethink about the Marvel movies that we spoke about before. It seems like when we get to this point, it seems like we sometimes take all this technology and green screen work for granted. So, just another movie with green screen. But when I watch this movie, it makes me think like, a lot of people put a lot of effort into these scenes, and we kind of take them for granted.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
it kind of makes sense in this movie to have the extravagant green screen. So yeah, I didn't mind it at all. I thought it was of course, this is a movie about Star Wars. There has to be some sort of green screen and battle scenes.
Whenever you get through the originals, because a lot of that was like the first kind of, I think it was like blue screen or green screen work, where it's a lot
blue
of like
screen and
imposed-
special effects.
Yeah,
and stuff
so
as well,
it's like the birth of it. So it makes sense to be like a big important part of how they display a lot of things in this film.
100%.
So
The next one from Mark Daniel with 2 L's from the Toronto Sun. So you don't have to be a Star Wars fan to love this addition to the canon. Heck, it works even if you haven't seen any of the other movies.
So this guy didn't talk to, the last guy on the audience score. But he did release this when the movie came out. So maybe he needed to wait 4 more years. And then maybe he would have had some different opinions about it.
Yes. So the original score that he gave is 4.5 out of 5.
So he really loved it.
Yeah, like I kind of share the perspective of this gentleman because I haven't seen the other Star Wars movies. So this was my first Star Wars, first official Star Wars movie.
Which is always weird, but I thought it was good.
Yeah, I mean, like if you have to judge the merit of the movie by itself, then it's not a bad way to think about it. So it's easy for me to follow the story because there's one anchor point. As most of the times, all the other aspects are surrounded around this main story. The supporting characters are well acted, are very likable, good distinction between good and bad.
That's always Star Wars. That's kind of like the base thing.
But I think I want to hear your opinion on this. Kylo Ren, the character. So he's supposed to be the imbalance force, right? So he doesn't really know.
He's the bad guy. He is very much in this film the bad guy.
Yeah.
But that's like, I do like that play with him and Rey and their connection. And they're kind of like, Rey thinks she's pulled him from the dark side, essentially. But then when they had that big fight scene, which I thought was kind of cool. And then at the end, he's like, no, you join me. And then we can rule together when that's not Rey who thought where it thought it was going. Yeah. Which I liked. I liked that dynamic.
Yeah.
Because usually in the films, getting into like the kind of lore of Star Wars is kind of Siths, there's always 2. and there's always the main big guy, and then they're like apprentice or second.
Yeah.
And there's like the rule of twos, like the canon thing.
Yeah.
There can only be two. So usually the apprentice always kills the old one and then they take over. So that's what I liked. So I thought, I'm like, oh, he's going to be the like main bad guy going into the last film.
Yeah.
So that's what I kind of liked. I'm like, oh, this will be interesting because they haven't really done that before. You could say in the prequels, but like not to this extent.
Yeah.
In the prequels, we were watching that story to watch Anakin become Darth Vader. But in this, we don't know where Ben's going.
Yeah.
Or Kylo Ren.
Yeah.
So it's like that I found that interesting personally.
Yeah. So in my opinion, because we spoke about this at length, I think because of this, it confused me a little bit on who is the bad guy of the movie, because I think they tried to portray.
Well, it is Snoke, the guy he kills.
Yeah. But then he didn't appear a lot in the movie.
Yeah, well, in the first film, in Force Awakens, he's like a force projection or just like an image.
Yes.
So he's just like a big dark presence that they talk to, because in the originals, that's what it's like. Darth Vader is the bad guy.
Yes.
And then the Emperor is kind of like an essence in the background, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, but in this case, I
that's what they try to do. I hate when they kind of like go back and try to do old stuff, but they don't know what to do. So
yeah, that's fair. I mean, yeah. So I now that you explain it, I understand what the movie is trying to do. That they want to show like the battle between dark and light, pretty much.
Yeah.
Like the representation. One side would pull the other side towards them, right?
That's what they try. Well, it's meant to be the balance. It's like good and evil. It's meant to be even, right?
Yeah.
But it's like when bad's weighing, someone has to come and like reorder it. And that's what Luke did in the original trilogy. He kind of brings balance to the Force.
Yeah.
But let's go to the last one. Maybe I'll get into it a bit when we finish about like what I think about what they were aiming for. But
the last review is from Alicia Wilkinson from Vox. Star Wars has been with us for 4 decades now.
not too long.
Telling the same essential story in a format that's overwhelming and engulfing, with wit, skill, and love. The Last Jedi takes up the torch and carries it to a new generation.
I like the sentiment there. Like nothing too crazy with like the review about what actually happens in the film.
Yeah.
But I do, because I had a lot of younger cousins who this is like their first Star Wars like film to go watch. So like I've talked to other people like, oh, I don't, because there's going to be, I don't know if they're still going to do it or not at this point, but there was meant to be like a Rey trilogy happening.
Oh, wow.
And people only were like, oh, it's not going to happen. People didn't like Rey. But I'm like, there's a lot of young kids that grew up watching this trilogy and liked it. So they're going to like Rey in her own film. It probably won't, like, it's not going to do these numbers, but I think it'll still be somewhat successful. I don't think they realize those kids are now teenagers, maybe even young adults now, and will be like the next generation. They'll be like, oh, for us, like, I grew up on the originals, but the prequels came out when I was like in primary school. So there's a lot of nostalgia for those films still, even though they're terrible. And people are still kind of like, oh, no. And it's just like, mate, they're bad movies. They're good Star Wars movies. Like,
Yeah.
But I kind of agree with that sentiment.
Yeah.
But we're not talking about the last film, which I think really kind of puts a lot of weeds in the work with what they're aiming to do. But if we're getting into how we agree, like I enjoy this film.
Yeah.
Still, like,
ooh,
it's
controversial.
It's been 8 years. Is it 8 years since it's come out? Or?
2017. So nearly. Well, I mean, it's marked the year 7 this year.
Okay,
so it came out in December 15, 2017.
But yeah, so like a lot of those audience reviews are a long time after. But I enjoyed it watching it, and even rewatching it, I still enjoy it. Like it's not like my favorite Star Wars film like the other person said, but I still enjoy it. Like I actually do like grumpy old Luke and him like overcoming that to like save the day.
Yeah.
I do like Rey's role of like not knowing who she is and saying that like her not being anyone's in like good. And it's not like it doesn't have to be another Skywalker. It can just be a new person with no real beginnings.
Yeah.
Because if we get into it, like these trilogies are meant to be the Skywalker films. They're meant to be about Skywalkers. And I do like the idea of them like, well, in this film at least, they're like trying to go away from that. Because even at the end, it shows a little kid he like uses the Force. So it's like, it'd be nice to see other Force users in like their own interesting stories. So I did a lot of things well that I really enjoyed. I will say, like I mentioned before, like the worst stuff is like in the casino. And I know if we touch on Rose, Rose got a lot of backlash for her character, but I blame that. I think it was more on her plot and storyline more than anything.
Yeah.
But I still really enjoy this film. A lot of great scenes, like you say with the CGI. A lot of people don't like when she like projects or she like warps through all the spaceships, but it looks amazing. Like you can't deny it. It doesn't look amazing.
Yeah.
And even the fight on Crate, it reminds me of Hoth, which is another snow planet, but this is like a salt planet, and like as they scrape through in the red,
That's
like
beautiful.
reveals.
That's beautiful.
It's really like amazing, like a really amazingly shot.
Yeah.
And like I think Rian Johnson's a great director. And I think a lot of people don't like that. He likes the bait and switch of being like, you're breaking your anticipation for what's going to happen. Like when Luke got the lightsaber, he was going to be like, oh, thank you. You know, this is something that's been through me through the years and I would love having it back. Or even people being like, he would have just had a moment to himself. Rather, he was just like, and he like throws it away. So that's when I think a lot of people would have been like, oh shit, because that happens like 10 minutes into the film or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think that's where it probably lost a lot of people like, what? This is not Luke I know. But it is what it is. And I think even the guy that plays Luke, Mark Hamill, I think he even came out and said he wasn't like really happy with how they went with his character.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the directors and writers write it, right? It isn't up to, the audience or, the actors themselves. But at the end of the day, yet again, we've done it 3 for 3 so far for me. I'll agree with the critics. Like I'm maybe not like super high on it, but I'd probably be like a 70, 70s-ish for this film if I was like giving it a percentage.
Yeah. And I think my perspective is a bit different because obviously I'm not a part of the Star Wars universe.
Or even watched them all. So.
Yeah. But I would leaning towards the critics as well. I don't think this was a bad movie. No. And I think a lot of the negativity comes from the fact that they are fans of the original franchise and they always compare the old stuff with the new stuff. Like, I think it's super, super difficult to build on something so big as Star Wars.
Right.
Like it create a whole fanatic universe around the world. And I think the aspects of nostalgia has something to do with that as well. Because just like you grew up with the things, and when you see other people try to change it, you don't want to lose that. And sometimes it clouds your judgment about the movie. Like, oh, this is not what I imagined it to be. Well, of course, people change. Like the characters change.
And it isn't like Luke, it's like 5 seconds after what just happened in the last movie. It is a long time.
Yeah, exactly. And what people don't realize is like, eventually the concept of Star Wars will go with you to a certain point. If you want this universe to continue, you need to attract a younger generation as well.
And even come from a different angle.
Correct.
It has to be something a bit different. Like if you're going through the old same stories over and over, like what's the point?
Yeah. And the younger generation wouldn't connect with it. And eventually this franchise would die out in the future.
Which I think might be happening anyway, but
we'll
see. More that they haven't produced much good content, or the stuff they do is like stuff people aren't interested in. But I do think we maybe need to do like an episode or 2 on like Star Wars stuff, but it might need a lot of episodes the way I could complain about some of this stuff. But
are you talking about the Disney movies, or are you talking about
just in Star Wars in general? Because I know you haven't touched on them much. You've only watched like a couple of them. So it'd be good from like even your view on things, or even like from someone that's watched it and followed some of the other stuff, but not like die hard. Like there's a lot of shows and stuff that have like hundreds and hundreds of episodes. And I'm like, it's too much. But like from my angle, like of someone that's followed Star Wars and has like a base understanding of how stuff works compared to someone that's new and just like, oh, what's all this stuff? Why is it important?
Fair enough.
But I think that'd be interesting. But I do think this is a good one to end on because whether you agree with us or not, it's always a bit controversial, a bit up and down, especially for this film. Because the other ones, the end... It ends with Us and Kinds of Kindness are probably films that you guys probably haven't watched. But this film, probably everyone's seen.
Everyone's seen it, So, and I think this is a good place for us to end this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed the conversation. Let us know what you think about these movies in the comments. I'm sure these movies are very controversial and divisive. And, follow our channel, click on the subscribe button, and turn on the bells to get the notification for the latest episode. And until next time, I hope you guys enjoy this new series, Critics versus Audience.
Yeah, Critics versus Audience.
And my name is Darren.
And I'm Tim.
And until next time, this has been Movie Beings Podcast.